What is it and why did China become a global power? What were the three steps that they did? When the petrodollar became a team of item, the US, in their smart political savviness, was able to attach the sale of oil to the dollar. It became a universal currency. So whoever controls those rare minerals will basically emerge as the new power across the globe. So I call it the three M's of racial dominance. Any race that wants to dominate will control what I call the three M. First M is
From every corner of the globe, stories that connect us, voices that inspire. This is Diaspora Television Network, your authentic source for news, views, and entertainment from the diaspora.
Today, we are honored to have Dr. Nelson Aluya with us, a distinguished and results-driven physician leader with over 25 years of experience in healthcare administration, clinical leadership, medical education, and community advocacy. Dr. Aluya has served as the Chief Medical Officer of two major federally qualified health centers in Newark, New Jersey, and has held esteemed positions such as Medical Director of prominent rehabilitation centers and Assistant Professor of Medicine at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School. Beyond his medical expertise, Dr. Aluya is also a global affairs analyst of international repute, bringing a unique perspective to critical global issues. In this interview, he will share his insights on the race for critical minerals by world powers and its implications for global dynamics. Welcome, Dr. Aluya.
Dr. Aluya,
yeah.
happy to have you on the Diaspora Television Network. I've been following you for quite a long time now, and quite frankly, your views are, how do I put it? I find them very, very interesting, and I think that the world needs to hear the things you know and the things that you do, particularly with your background in American politics, NAPAC, and the rest of them. So apart from the fact that you're a medical doctor, so I just want us to look at some of the issues that are happening globally right now. And for me, and what we'll be looking at today is the race for critical minerals. And so my first question to you today is, how is this race for critical minerals quietly rewriting global power and turning Africa into the new geopolitical kingmaker while China and the US scramble for control?
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for such what do you call energizing words. That you to have someone like you follow me and see what I do. It's a great honor. So I'm really pleased to have you say that. And thank you for inviting me to your program. It's a great pleasure. Yeah. So yeah, the world is changing, no doubt, and we're moving from hydrocarbon to new forms of minerals. As you know, since I think mid to late 18 to 1900s, when petroleum was found and found to be used as a means of energy to power everything else. So those who controlled or had the ability to extract and refine oil into energy and utilize it properly, first for industrialization and then for military purposes, became global powers all through. Three big powers that did that, or four great powers. One was Spain, became the greatest power in the 1500s, again, because of power. Followed by Britain, and of course, you had USSR, and then the United States. All those three I mentioned are no longer global powers. They're all gone and disintegrated. And then you have the America now that's the current global power, and again based on oil. And then emerging China. So we see a big shift. The difference now from then to now, you and I are right in the middle of it, right in the middle of that shift from one technological advancement into another. And we're seeing it. These things take decades. And it's a revolution, an evolving revolution that we're really witnessing. And the beauty is this, that in between is Africa. Now, in all of this, Africa has always been inside. But the difference between them and now is you and I are alive. And we're smart, we're brilliant, we're intelligent, and we have the means to communicate. You see, our forefathers, they have those of us or those people who were in the diaspora, right? And they didn't have the means to communicate across the world. I'm in America, over 5,000 miles away in a different, time span, and you're in Nigeria, and we're talking. This was not possible before in other times. So, and that's the difference. Now, what that emerging platform is transition to what they call renewable or green energy. You hear them talk about it all the time and all that. And it's on the premise that the world or the earth is warming up, global warming and all that. So they had to look for alternative energy. And that alternative energy with research and all that, it's not just on alternative energy. It's the fact that we're looking for cheaper, faster, more economic, and more powerful tools that will help give us energy. Because as you can see, we've been looking to space for a long time. Humans is looking to space. And we want to conquer space. But we need that energy. And what's that energy? Well, we talk about nuclear fusion, nuclear fission. But then in order to be able to carry out those two processes, nuclear reactors and all that, they still depend on some kind of carbon. But then minerals is where the impact is. So that shift is where we are. You and I are witnessing it. Now, the beauty again is Africa is right in the smart grid this time around. We have enough of it, a lot. Now, the geo-economic and political aspect is what we're going to talk about. Because what made America, like I said, to become the global power because they were able to, not just extract, but also refine, and they could use it and use it for great use. You see how Henry Ford with the car he did, how it proliferated and democratized movement, vehicles across in the United States, across the world. And not just that, when the petrodollar, that's putting the economics and politics, when the petrodollar became a team of item, the US, in their smart political savviness, was able to attach the sale of oil to the dollar. It became a universal currency, as we see today. So the word right now is to find a way to kill the petrodollar and all that. You see what these guys are doing, the BRICS economy and all that, and the emergence of China and the emerging technology. So cobalt, lithium, and all the other minerals that Africa has in abundance everywhere, it's now the new source of energy because the technology that drives what you and I are speaking through, the platforms, the computer, the satellites, are all based on these rare minerals. So whoever controls those rare minerals will basically emerge as the new power across the globe. So America is fighting, China is fighting, and we have the minerals. But guess what? Right? Just like it did with the US and the petrol, those powers will belong to those who are able, not just because they are on resources on the ground, but those who are able to mine them, refine them, and use them into great purpose. Those again will be the ones who will truly control the world. China has the capacity. US has the capacity. A few other countries, you see, Europe as a EU trying to control that as well. They are trying to do this. So, where do Africa belong in this? If we can refine it, we can take it to good use. Yes, we'll be able to become globally relevant. But if we can't, we can also do what do you call it? What the the Arabs were able to do, right? They negotiated on terms where they were able to use the petrodollar to advance their own costs, selling what they have in excess. Now they've been able to technologically advance themselves, right? And build their industry and become relevant. So they don't have the means, but they have the goods. So if Africa in itself, understanding that they have the goods or the resources, but they don't have the means of refining it, yes, they can do become significant, but they may not be truly a global power. But until they're able to extract it from Earth, refine it, then they can. Can Africa do that? Yes, they can. Because what they do have, they have the numbers. The population today, Africa is about 1.5 billion people who live in Africa. In as much as economically, the GDP is not that great. Just about 2.3 billion. When a country like the United States of 330 million people have a GDP of almost 30 billion, and China of 1.4, a GDP of 18 trillion dollars. You understand? So we as a people must learn how to control this. Now we have the population, we have the young population. And the advantage we also have is our birth rate is still very high, right? The average birth rate for African continent is about 4 children per woman, right? But in the US, it's about 2.1. China is about 3 or 3 point something. But guess what? And Europe is about 1.8, right? So in the future, in 1950, Africa was just about 9% of the global population. Today, we're 19% of the global population. By the year 2050, we'll be at 25% of the global population. By the year 2100, we'll be 35%. So that's of the global population. That's huge, and we're still young. With those brilliant minds and technology making it easy for us to learn, educate, and inform ourselves, guess what? We will. So the other aspect is, one, the technology we're talking about. When we talk about AI and quantum physics and quantum mechanics, we are learning it. But we'll not just learn, we also have to adapt, utilize it for that technology to become significant for us so that truly we become relevant globally. That's how Africa can play in this new dimension, new global dynamics of energy, politics, and economics.
You've literally just taken everything away. But I want us to just sort of nail it down to specifics right now. I know you've talked about it, but we're looking at specifics right now. Can you sort of maybe briefly walk us through how the world is transitioning from oil-dominated geopolitics to a new mineral age, and what makes this shift an inflection point?
Yeah, so we talk about, if you look all through, I have been, I thank God, when the global population was about 7 billion people. Today it's 8.7 billion. And that is rising, of which, like I said earlier on, a lot of them will come from Africa. So as the population explodes, so also will be the need of those who will be on Earth. And utilization and adoption of technologies. And not just that, but the ability to feed, those who will be alive as the population increases. So for us to be able to feed, because if you follow the Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? Right. So food, shelter, security, and all that. So every human being on Earth would have to follow through that. As the population explodes or increases, we'll have the demand to do this. So what happens all through 15th century, 16, 18th and 19th century, you see man started building upwards, the skyscrapers. For you to build skyscrapers, you need the technology, steel, concrete, and all that, right? So, and to also be able to provide food for people, you need the technology to ramp up the food production for people. You need technology to move the food from one place to another. And that's where petroleum came in. So humanity is very dynamic, and we will need that. So, but it seems as if our population, our skills and knowledge is fast exceeding the pace for which petroleum can handle what we need. So we need a new form of technology. Before it was steam. Remember steam engine, steam on trains, steam on that. Then petrol came. Now we're looking at other forms. Uh, um, Nuclear technology. Nuclear technology is expensive, it's cumbersome, it's risky. So we're talking about renewable energy, capturing the sun, finding ways of making nuclear fission more feasible, more in a ways where we can contain it. You understand? So all of this technology is based on the new minerals that we see, all those rare earths, and the ability to, create quantum technology or access on the quantum level, where we're able to interpret information, create new information, create new ability to answer questions that we have. We just need to learn so much about space and the energy that's so much abound out there. How do we capture all of those things? So that's why the need for this, new form of energy is really exploding really hard. So population, the economics, the money that drives it, the need to feed, clothe, and maintain the population, and as well as secure what we have, collectively or individually at every level, by every region and every country. That is what is driving what we're seeing today. And of course, that is the politics of it. So, like I always say, politics drives everything. If you think you're not interested in politics and you don't care, guess what? Politics determine how your neighbor think, act, behave, or even sell and buy. So it would affect you one way or the other.
Okay. So, I mean, I hear you. You just took us through, like, first we're talking about steam, apart from the Iron Age and all that, talking about steam engine. It was a big thing at the time. And then,
Right.
coal came, and then petroleum. And petroleum was king for quite a long time, still is to a very large extent. But what is driving the new, if you like, the new world order or the new economic technology is minerals. Although, like we say, petroleum is still there. But now tell me, why do critical minerals like cobalt, for instance, lithium, and graphite represent the backbone of 21st century technology, if you agree that is, and energy, even as oil continues to fuel the economy?
Right. But it's just the way they're able um to function. You understand? Because they get to a point where the amount of energy that can be released within a certain component of it um is much greater, than burning fuel. Because if you burn fuel, um in fact, the process of mining it, that's one. The process of refining, that's two. The process of separating it into components, to petrol, benzene, and all the other things, and then the byproducts that can be toxic to the environment. These are the issues that humanity now feel will begin to be, our activities have become toxic to us as a people. That the earth that we're living, which is the only place we have right now, there's nowhere else, that it begins to get really toxic and the population is expanding. So we need to find a way to purify this and have a way of finding alternative energy to what hydrocarbon is giving us. Because our activity has produced so much that it becomes detrimental to the environment. So what all these other things can do is the amount of refined energy with less byproducts and the capacity to generate and capture information. And that information to transfer that information, to process that information and store that information. That is the new way. And that's why where they now tell you now data is king, that data is the new currency, right? Because everything we do, look at computers. When computers first came out, how many people could use computers? When I was in school, if I needed to do email, I go to a computer center, right? And the computer, so 10, 20 of us, 50, 100 of us will gather and send, using one computer to send email to one. But right now we have the proliferation of computers, not just computers and that we now have laptops, right? So we now have laptops, we now have cell phones. So all of those components, if you notice, the big computers when it started were huge giant machines, big room, and they needed to be cooled. But they found a way to cool them and then bring down them to a smaller level to reduce the size, increase the efficiency, right? And then increase the processing of those information, the ability. So what my cell phone can do now, those big giant computers that took man to space, my cell phone has the capacity to do those things. So you can imagine. So we going down to a quantum level, this is where we're going to, is on the elemental level, small micro level, to the point where I can create new robots that I can put inside of you to find diseases, cure diseases, cure cancer, heal up areas where you're bleeding within you, rather than putting a scope in you. So all of this is fight infectious, micro, you understand, and not that processing. So all that data and the speed at which it's processing has to be captured and has to be stored. You understand? So going down to the elemental micro level, that's the beauty and the advantage of it, where we can no longer expel those energy, but we can make these things process faster, read faster, do things faster with less and less amount of energy. But the output is so much greater. And that's what these minerals can do for us. You understand? Sandy, that's the reason why.
Thank you very much. Let's let me just we're going to look at China right now. Okay. I want to see, China seems to be giving a lot of headache to perhaps the West. We're going to be looking at China's dominance next. Let's just take a brief time out, and as soon as we're back, and we'll take on the China. We'll look at China's dominance. Okay. So welcome back. How has China's long-term strategy in mining, processing, and supply chains given it a head start in controlling critical minerals globally?
Right. So I'll tell you this. China is a global power, and I can take things in two prongs. First, what is it and why did China become a global power? I wrote an article recently on the rise of power and the cost of becoming a great nation. What did China do? You understand? And then what were the 3 steps that they did? And I've often said this, I've written about this. I call it the 3 M's of racial dominance. Any race that wants to dominate will control what I call the 3 M. First M is money. Second is military. Third is media. China went after money. They got the money and using the money to buy the military. You can see that now. They're not as much as where the US is, but they're getting there. And they're using that money that they got because they went after it first to now buy technology. And the technology is expressed and processed in the military fashion. It's also processed in the media fashion, where the last N is media. What do you mean media? Those who control the narratives, the story in arts and craft, in technology output. You see them, Huawei, 3G or the next G or 5G or the next G that's coming out. TikTok, all of that. You see how they did that? So first media, first money, second military, third is media. They're trying to control that. Any race that has the capacity to control all of those what I call the three M's of racial dominance, will control everything. The West, or the Caucasians, have controlled all of those things for the last 400 years, period. And there's an emergence of these people. So that's why. So hopefully, Africa will learn to begin to go first after their money, and then be able to buy military and hope control media. But then that's another story. We may get there, and we will.